Find KJ. Found it. We're done. Just kidding. All right, this is a midsegment. A midsegment is a line in a triangle that connects a midpoint of one side to a midpoint of another side. By definition, the midsegment of a triangle is half of the base of the triangle. In other words, KJ is half of AC. KJ is half of 18. KJ is 9. So pretty simple. Midsegment, nothing to lose a whole lot of sleep over. I did it. Solve for x. All right, x is just some arbitrary variable. What I have is a triangle. WRX, R is a midpoint because these two are congruent, and Q is also a midpoint because these two are congruent, which means QR is a midsegment. By definition, a midsegment is 1/2 the measure of the base. So we could say QR is 1/2 the measure of YW. QR is given to us as 2x minus 3. That's going to equal 1/2 of YW, which is x plus 9, and I'm going to put that in parentheses because you need it. Now it's just an equation with x on both sides of the equal sign. We do distributive property like so. 2x minus 3 is untouched, equals half of x plus 9. Let's get rid of half of an x, so minus 1/2 x minus 1/2 x. 2x's minus 1/2 is 1.5, or I'm going to write out 3 over 2x. Drop down the minus 3, drop down the equal sign, you're now gone, drop down the positive 9. Now it's a two-stepper. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides, add 3 to both sides. 2/3 x equals 12. And rather than dividing both sides by 2/3, let's multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3 over 2. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 over 2. That allows me to cross these guys out. And the trick when you multiply a whole number to a fraction is do 12 divided by the denominator. So 12 divided by 2 is 6, and then 6 times 3 is 18. So in this case, all I had to do was find out x. X ended up being 18. The age of being an adult here in the United States. Find VW. Volkswagen. Happy Gilmore. VW. All right, well, W first off is a midpoint because these two are congruent. V is also a midpoint because these two are congruent, which tells me that this is a midsegment. VW is a midsegment. By definition, a midsegment is half of the base of a triangle. So VW is half of NL. So VW was x plus 15. That's going to equal 1/2 of NL, which is x plus 21. Now it's just an equation with distributive property, x on both sides. So let's distribute out the 1/2. That gives me x plus 15. That part hasn't changed. Half of x is 1/2 x. And half of 21 is 21 over 2. Okay, you could put 10.5, you could put 10.5. I'm keeping it as 21 over 2. I have a feeling that's just going to be the best for us. You'll see why. Now I have x on the left and half x on the right. Let's get rid of the half x on the right by subtracting 1/2 x from both sides. 1 half x. 1 whole x minus 1 half x is 1 half x. Drop down the plus 15. Drop down the equals. You're gone. Drop down the 21 over 2. Now what I'm going to do while I'm at it is I'm going to quick replace this with this 15. I almost said 21. I got 21 on the mind. What was that? 15. I'm going to turn 15 into 30 over 2 because my next step is to subtract 15 or 30 over 2 from both sides. Where did I get 30 over 2? Because 15 divided by or multiplied by 2 over 2 is 30 over 2. Just a little bit of multiplication. So I'm going to subtract 30 over 2 from both sides. Subtract 30 over 2 from both sides. Cross you out. Drop down the 1 half x equals 21 over 2 minus 30 over 2 has me subtracting the numerator, so negative 9, but keeping the denominator over 2. My final step is rather than divide both sides by a half, multiply both sides by its reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 over 1, which is the same as 2. That crosses these out. X is now alone on the left. Negative 9 over 2 times 2 has me cross out the 2's and leaves me with just the negative 9. Now my job here is to find VW. X is negative 9. Oh, the temptation to circle X is negative 9 is there, but that's not what I'm supposed to do. Now that I know that VW is X plus 15 and X is negative 9, I do negative 9 plus 15, which gives me 6. So VW is 6. And we're done. And you might be thinking, so then what's the point of MN? There was no point of MN. It's just there. So thanks. Thanks for nothing, MN. Thanks for nothing. The figure shows a triangle with one of its angle bisectors. Find x if the measure of angle 2 equals 1 plus 28x, and the measure of angle x VW is 59x minus 1. All right, this is angle 2 right there, and that's 1 plus 28x. X VW is this whole angle here, as I very poorly drew, but there it is. Now, an angle bisector sounds exactly what it is. It takes an angle and cuts it in half. So the measure of angle 2, and let me actually write that up here just in case I need the space. I don't know if I do, but I'm just going to do it up here. The measure of angle 2 cuts XVW in half. So half of the measure of angle XVW. So what's the measure of angle 2? 1 plus 28x. That's going to equal 1 half of the measure of angle XVW, which is 59x minus 1. Now, the other way I could set this up is I could have said that this guy equals 2 times the measure of angle 2. Either way, you'll get the same answer. I've already committed. So 1 plus 28x hasn't changed. I'm going to multiply 1 half to 59 over x. So I'm going to put that as 59 over 2x minus 1 times a half is minus a half. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, since my next step is to subtract 59 over 2, I'm going to turn 28 into something over 2. Now, if I'm going to turn 28 into something over 2, I multiply 28 by 2, which is 56. So I have 56 over 2x. Let's drop down the 1. Let's drop down the equals 59 over 2x minus a half. In order to get rid of this x over here, I'm going to subtract 59 over 2x. Again, subtract 59 over 2x, cross you out. 56 over 2 minus 59 over 2 is minus 3 over 2. Drop down the 1, drop down the equal sign, drop down the minus a half. Now what I have is a terrible, terrible, terrible two-step equation. I've heard of terrible twos, but terrible two-step equation, that's not much worse at all. I have a 2-year-old, and terrible twos are a nightmare. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, negative 1 over 2 minus 1, and let me write it over here. Negative 1 over 2 minus 1 is negative 3 over 2. So on the right, I have negative 3 over 2. On the left, I have negative 3 over 2x. That's actually pretty nice, because what I could do is I can multiply both sides by its reciprocal, which is negative 2 over 3. I know that looks sloppy, but if I multiply both sides by negative 2 over 3, that completely cancels out, which means that also completely cancels out, and x equals 1. Now my job is to find x. X equals 1. I don't have to do much more than that. It wasn't pleasant looking, but that's what I got, the end. Find PV if PW is 7. Now I had to add the little lines here because I forgot to put the rest of the directions. These are all angle bisectors. You're an angle bisector, you're an angle bisector, you're an angle bisector. If you have the 3 angle bisectors of a triangle drawn out, they meet at a spot called the incenter. Now, the neat thing about the incenter is that the distance from the incenter to each side, as long as the sides are perpendicular to that distance, that's just how the definition works anyway. They have to be perpendicular from a point to a side. It's got to be perpendicular. It's just a rule. All of these guys are going to be congruent to each other. So PW is 7, which means PV is also 7, which means PX is also 7. I didn't tell you that, but that's just a rule. This is sometimes called the incenter theorem. But again, by definition, if you have your 3 angle bisectors drawn out, they meet at the incenter. And the incenter, if you were to draw 3 perpendicular lines, all 3 of those perpendicular lines are going to be the same measurement. So in this case, PV is 7 because PW is 7. And for those of you who live in southeast Pennsylvania, Perk Valley and Plymouth Whitemarsh, PX, nothing. XP, experience points. Like and subscribe. The figure shows a triangle with 1 or more of its medians. All right, so what's a median? A median connects an angle to the midpoint of its opposite side. So technically this happens, an angle to the midpoint of its opposite side, technically that happens. Find LJ, which is you, if IJ is 6. All right, not so bad. This whole side is 6. The whole side is 6. This is the midpoint, which means LJ is going to be half of the entire side. Half of the entire side. So LJ is going to be half of 6, which means LJ is 3. Dunzo funzo. Find K if xt equals and KB equals One of the things that I forgot to mention in the directions is all of these are medians. Okay, all of these are medians. And what a median does is it takes the midpoint of one side and connects it to the opposite angle. It doesn't mean that these are angle bisectors. It just means that these guys are the same. Now, is that what I have to do? I have to find KT. So this is even worse. KT is this line right here. And KB is this guy right here. The whole thing. Now, this is called a centroid. Doesn't really affect anything. I just wanted to call it a centroid. Now, what you do with medians is whatever the angle or the vertex is to the centroid, That's going to be 2/3 of the entire line. Okay, so KT is 2/3 of the entire line KB. Okay, so this is going to take a few minutes. KT is 6x plus 6 all over 5. That's going to equal 2/3 of 11 fifths x minus 6 over 5. Now, what I'm going to do to make my life a little bit easier is I'm going to combine these two. Is it necessary? No, but I'm going to combine these two. I have 6x plus 6 over 5. Nothing's changed there. 2/3, nothing's changed there. 11x minus 6 all over 5. 11x minus 6 all over 5, like so. Now what I can do is I'm going to multiply 2/3. So 2 is going to be multiplied to everything there. 6x plus 6 over 5, still unchanged. That's going to equal 2 times 11, which is 22, the Taylor-Swift special, minus 2 times 6, which is 12, all over 3 times 5, which is 15. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to crisscross applesauce. That's why I combined things in the first place. I'm going to multiply 15 to 6x plus 6. 15 times 6 is 90, so that becomes 90x, and I'll write it up here, plus 90. I'm distributing 15 to both of these. 15 times 6x is 90x. 15 times 6 is 90, equals. I'm going to crisscross applesauce again. 5 times 22 is 110x. 5 times negative 12 is negative 60. And now I have variables on both sides of the equal sign. So why don't I subtract 110x from both? Minus 110x minus 110x. That gets me negative 20x plus 90 equals negative 60. Let's subtract 90. Let's subtract 90. And that gets me negative 20x equals negative 150. Divide both sides by negative 20. Divide both sides by negative 20. And x equals positive 7.5. Ooh. Not fun at all. But that's medians. They're just not fun. Find the coordinates of the centroid. The centroid is found by basically connecting the midpoints to all of the angles. Now, so there's a lot of mid stuff going on here. So it would make sense that what you do is you take all the x values. So I will label them by calling them x sub 1, x sub 2, and x sub 3. You add all three of them up and divide by 3. It's basically finding the average. Do the same thing with the y values. Y sub 1, y sub 2, y sub 3, add them up, divide by 3. All right, so let's find out our 3 x values. That x value is negative 5, so negative 5, plus that x value is 0, I think I can handle that, plus that x value is 2. So negative 5, 0, 2, divided by 3. My y values are 0. This goes all the way up to 6, so plus 6. And this is 0 again because that point is 2, 0. Divide u by 3. Negative 5 plus 0 plus 2 is going to be negative 5 plus 2, which is negative 3 over 3. 0 plus 6 plus 0 is 6. I think I can handle that. 6 over 3. Negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And that's my answer. So negative 1, 2. As you can see, again, it's found by connecting all of the angle, I don't want to say angle bisectors because that's not true, all of the midpoints to their opposite angles. So midpoint, opposite angle, midpoint, opposite angle. Right in the middle there is your centroid. There you have it. Find the coordinates of the centroid. All right, the centroid is basically connected by taking a bunch of midpoints and connecting it to its opposite angle. Now, there's no picture, and you might be thinking, what the heck does that mean? Don't even worry about it. What you do is you take the three x values. So if I were to label these x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, very slope formula E, but I have x sub 3, y sub 3. You find the centroid by adding all of the x values, x sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 3, and divide it by 3. Do the same thing with the y values, y sub 1, y sub 2, y sub 3, divided by 3. So that's going to be 3 plus negative 5 plus 0 divided by 3. And that's going to be y sub 1, which is 4, plus 0, plus 0 divided by 3. 3 plus negative 5 is negative 2, plus 0 is still negative 2. So this gives me negative 2 over 3, so I'll just write that out as negative 2 over 3. 4 plus 0 just gives me 4 over 3, so I'll write it out like that. And that's my guy. And if you're like, well, those are fractions, that ain't good. It ain't wrong. No one likes fractions, but there's nothing wrong with that answer. So we're done. State if the three numbers can be the measures of the sides of a triangle. This uses what's called the triangle inequality theorem. And the triangle inequality theorem says that if you add any two sides of a triangle, it has to be greater than that third side. So if I were to label a triangle, just any arbitrary triangle, x, y, z. X plus y has to be greater than z. X plus z has to be greater than y. And what didn't I do? Y plus z has to be greater than x. So if I call you x, y, and z, we could put all of those to the test. X plus y is 8 plus 2 has to be greater than 8. Yep, checks out. 10's greater than 8. X plus z is going to be 8 plus 8 has to be greater than y, which is greater than 2. 18 is greater than 2. That checks out. And y plus z has to be greater than x, so 2 plus 8 has to be greater than 8. That checks out. So are these the three sides of a triangle? Yay. That's my daughter sneezing. Now we'll try it again. This is x, this is y, this is z. So I have to say 3 plus 6 has to be greater than 2. 9's greater than 2. Check. X plus z, 3 plus 2 has to be greater than 6. No. 5 is not greater than 6. So can these be the measures of a triangle? No. And that makes sense. There's no way you can build a triangle that has a side of 3, a side of 2, which adds up to 5, and has it reach up to a 6. Not possible. So this one was a yes, this one was a no, and that's the triangle inequality theorem in a nutshell. The two sides of a triangle have the following measures. Find the range of possible measures for the third side. Simple. What you do is you take these numbers and you subtract the largest from the smallest. That's 3. Then you add these two, that's 15, and your third side, which we'll call x, has to be in between them. It can't be equal to, it has to be in between. So another way that we could say this is greater than 3, but smaller than 15. So this uses the triangle inequality theorem, but really quick. It basically says that, look, if you needed to connect these, you need something like 3.1, 3.2, or you can have 14.9. You can't have anything bigger than 15. You can't have anything smaller than 3. So anything between 3 and 15 should do the job. Dunzo. Order the angles in each triangle from smallest to largest. Well, this doesn't give us the angles. Oh, but you know what it does? It gives us the sides. And whatever the largest side is, in this case 18, its opposite angle is going to be the largest. So let's find the smallest side first. Okay, LK is the smallest side, which means angle J is going to be the smallest angle because J is opposite of 14, which is the smallest side. Similarly, the one in the middle is 16, so the opposite angle of 16 is K, so angle K is going to be in the middle. And then the largest angle is going to be L, like I mentioned before, because the largest side is 18, so the largest angle is going to be angle L. So angle J, angle K, angle L, because you were the smallest, you were in the middle, and you are the largest side. And that's it. Order the sides of each triangle from shortest to longest. Well, I don't have the sides. I have the angles. Oh, but you know what? What I can do is I can find the shortest angle, which is 55. And whatever the shortest angle is, the side opposite that is going to be the shortest side. So since my shortest angle is, or my smallest angle is angle F, the shortest side is going to be side GE. So let's find the medium angle, 62, barely, but that's the medium angle. The side opposite that is side GF, so we'll say side GF for girlfriend. And last but not least, the biggest angle is 63, so the side opposite of that is going to be FE, so my longest side is FE. So there you have it. Whatever the shortest angle is, its opposite side is the shortest side, and so on and so on. And we are done. EC is the altitude, not to be confused with attitude, which is something all three of my daughters have. Just kidding, except I'm not. Altitude. The measure of angle 1, U, is 2x plus 7, and the measure of angle 2, U, is 3x plus 13. Find the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 2. All right. What is an altitude? An altitude is a fancy word for height. Now, if you're going to measure the height of anything, it has to be straight up and down. So since EC is the height of this triangle right here, EC has to be straight up and down. And since this is a right angle, of course, that implies this is a right angle, which implies that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 are 90 degrees when added together. They're complementary. So that's how we're going to set this up. We're going to say the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 90. So 2x plus 7 plus 3x plus 13 equals 90. All right, we'll combine that 2x and that 3x because they are like terms, becomes 5x. Another nice round number, 7 and 13 make 20. And that equals 90. Now it's a two-step equation. Subtract 20, 5x equals 70. All right, now it's a one-step equation. Divide both sides by 5, and you get 14. Done, right? Wrong. We're supposed to find the measure of angle 1, not just x. And we know that the measure of angle 1 is 2x plus 7. So the measure of angle 1 is going to be 2 times 14 plus 7. 2 times 14 is 28. And 28 plus 7 is 35. So the measure of angle 1 is 35 degrees. So let me write that out a little bit cleaner. The measure of angle 1 is 35 degrees. Now the measure of angle 2 is done very similarly. Okay, up here, measure of angle 2 is 3x plus 13, so it's going to be 2 times, not 2. Now the measure of angle 2 is going to be done very similarly. The measure of angle 2, according to the top up here, is 3x plus 13. But you know what? We know x is 14, just like it was up there in blue. I don't know why I didn't just write it down. I wasn't thinking, I guess. So 3 times 14 plus 13. 3 times 14 is 42. 42 plus 13 is 55 degrees. So the measure of angle 2 is 55 degrees. These are my two answers, and this makes sense. If I were to add these guys together, 55 plus 35, I get 90 degrees, which is what 1 plus 2 is supposed to be. All right? So that's altitudes for you. Fun, fun, fun. Find the coordinates of the orthocenter of a triangle with vertices 0, 6, 4, 6, and 1, 3. I know what you're thinking. Orthocenter, isn't that where I go to get my braces tightened? No, that's the point where the three altitudes of a triangle intersect. So let's draw a kind of nice picture of what we're dealing with here. We have points at 0, 6, 0, 6. We have another point at 4, 6, so 4, 6. And we have a point of 1, 3, so estimating, ballparking it 1, 3. All right, so there is a picture, there is a triangle, and my job is to find out where my altitudes intersect. Now, let's be smart here. When you're finding out where lines intersect, you're solving a system of equations, okay? We only need 2 lines. We only need 2 altitudes. So I'm going to make life easy and only find 2 equations of my altitudes. Now let's start with the easy one, which is going to be that guy right there. Remember, my altitude is a line that goes through a vertex and is perpendicular to the side that's opposite of that vertex. So in order to find the equation of this red line, and I'll call it red, in order to find the equation of this red line, I need a line that's perpendicular, okay? So it's perpendicular to 0, 6 and 4, 6, and it has to go through 1, 3. Okay, there. Now, what do we see? Well, if it goes through 0, 6 and 4, 6, it's horizontal, which means something perpendicular to it is going to be vertical. And the equation of a vertical line is x equals a number. Well, what number is it going to be? Well, if it goes through 1, 3, then it's going to go through my x value, which is 1. So great, I already have one of my equations already. I hope finding another equation is just as friendly. No, not at all. I could pick any altitude I want. Let's pick U. So we're going to call it purple because of colors. And if you're colorblind, then it's gray. We need one that's perpendicular to these 2 points right here. So perpendicular to 0, 6 again, and perpendicular to 1, 3 this time. This one is going to go through the point 4, 6. So I need to come up with a slope perpendicular to a line connecting these 2 points. So in order for me to do that, I have to find the slope of that. So remember, you find the slope by doing 3 minus 6, the y values, 3 minus 6 over 1 minus 0. 3 minus 6 is negative 3. 1 minus 0 is 1, so we have negative 3. Now that is the slope of this line right here, which looks right. Looks pretty accurate. But so the slope that I want is perpendicular to negative 3. So something that's perpendicular to negative 3 is going to be the opposite reciprocal of negative 3, which means we take that 3, we make it 1/3, and make the opposite of negative, which is positive. So the slope that I want is 1/3. So if I use point slope form, which I'm going to do, y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity x minus x sub 1, I can come up with the equation of a line with a slope of 1/3 and now goes through the point 4, 6. So I'll label you x sub 1, y sub 1. You're my m. Let's plug it all in. Y minus 6 equals 1/3 times the quantity x minus 4. Now, before you're all like, all right, well, let's distribute and add 6. No need. This is an equation. And that's good enough for me. Now, what I'm doing is I'm solving a system of equations where my two equations are this guy boxed in here and this guy boxed in here. My x value is already solved for. So life is not that bad right now. And what I can do is I can rewrite this equation and just simply substitute 1 for x. So y minus 6 equals 1/3 1 minus 4. Y minus 6 equals 1/3 times negative 3, because 1 minus 4 is negative 3. Y minus 6, 1/3 times negative 3 is negative 1. Add 6 to both sides, and y is 7. Nope, y is 5. I was going to say 7 wouldn't make sense. That would fall out here. 5 seems to be a whole lot nicer. So, since x is 1 and y is 5, that tells me that my orthocenter, the point where all of my altitudes intersect, is going to be the point 1, 5. So this problem on a frustrating difficulty scale was up there towards the 10. Not impossible. I mean, fortunately, this was horizontal. If it wasn't, then maybe we would go up to a scale of 10 out of 10. But I'll give it a 9, just like me. A solid 9. Find the coordinates of the circumcenter of ABC with vertices A, 0, 3, B, 0, negative 1, and C, 6, negative 1. Well, let's just pretend that we have a nice little triangle here. So I'm going to draw the triangle. And there's two ways that you could describe what a circumcenter is. If and I'm not, as you can see by my drawing, I ain't good at this. If I were to try to draw a circle connecting these 3 dots, the circumcenter would be the complete center of a circle. Better yet, the circumcenter is also where my 3 perpendicular bisectors intercept. Now, a perpendicular bisector is you take a side, like this guy right here, you find the midpoint, which appears to be U, and you make a line perpendicular to it, going that way. You do it again. Find the midpoint, which appears to be U, and make a line perpendicular to it, which goes that way. And then we have these 2 lines intersecting at a point right there. Now, I know my answer. Okay? I know my answer. It's 3, 1. There it is. Done. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the whole process anyway, because in all honesty, this is a very friendly triangle. It's very friendly. It's graphable. I gave you a graph. It's done. I don't have to think too much. But they're not always going to be this easy. So what I need to do is I need to come up with, so I'm just going to go through the motions, knowing my answer already, knowing what's going to happen. What I need to do is I need to find the equation for this blue line right here, and I need to find the equation for this red line right here. Find out where those two lines intersect. It'll be 3, 1, and when I'm done, I'm done. So let's go through the motions, okay? Blue. I need the midpoint of these 2 points, which is 0, 3 and 0, negative 1. So I need the midpoint of 0, 3 and 0, negative 1. And it has to be perpendicular to that as well. It has to be perpendicular to that as well. That's the equation that I need to come up with. The midpoint of 0, 3 and 0, negative 1 is the average of the x values. So the midpoint is the average of the x values, and the average of 0 and 0 is 0 plus 0 divided by 2, which is 0. And the average of my y values is 3 plus negative 1, 2. Divide that by 2, 1. My midpoint is 0, 1. Now to find the slope, I could see it right here. But let me find the slope. The slope is going to be negative 1 minus 3 because I'm using the slope formula. So negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4 over 0 minus 0, which is 0, which is undefined. So what I need is something perpendicular to that, and something that's perpendicular to a vertical line has a slope of 0. So y equals a slope of 0, x plus b, which means my y-intercept, and my y-intercept is 1. So the equation of this guy is y equals 1. All right, so again, I went through the motions to show you how this is done. I'm not going to do that again. Okay, the equation of my red line here is a vertical line, and it goes through 3. So a vertical line is in the form x equals going through 3 is 3. So now I have my two equations. Where does the equation y equals or x equals 3 and y equals 1 intersect? How about at 3, 1? Just like I said it would. All right, so these problems have a tendency to get more complicated than this, but there you have it. And again, if you can just imagine that circle being drawn right here, that dot right there is the center. That's what circumcenter means. The perpendicular bisectors of ABC intersect at point G are shown in blue. All right, so you're a perpendicular bisector, you're a perpendicular bisector, you're a perpendicular bisector. Wait a minute. Which means you right here would be a circumcenter. Now, if you don't know what that means, right, if I were to draw a triangle and attempt to draw a circle around it, okay, the perpendicular bisectors all meet at this circumcenter. Now, why is this important? Well, if my circle is going to hit all 3 vertices, then the distance from that vertex to the circumcenter is the radius, which means all 3 of these guys are the same, which means all 3 of my red lines here are the same, which means if AG is 9, BG is 9. P is the circumcenter of XYZ. PX is 4x plus 3, so where's PX? You're PX. And PZ is 6x minus 11, find PY. Okay. So if this is the circumcenter, right, try to imagine that I drew a circle connecting these 3 dots. Now, there's no way I'd be able to fit this circle on this page or this slide or whatever you want to call it. The circle would look something like this. P is the center of that circle. So if P is the center of this invisible circle, that means P goes to X, P goes to Y, P goes to Z. All of those are a radius of the circle, which means all of these red lines are the same. So px is the same as pz. So if px is the same as pz, then 4x plus 3 is equal to 6x minus 11. Now I have an equation with variables on both sides of the equal sign. Minus 4x minus 4x. U become 3 equals 2x minus 11. Add 11, u become 14 equals 2x. Divide by 2, x equals 7. Circle my answer? No. It's telling me to find py. I'm not given any information about py. None. But you know what I am given information about? Px. I'm also given information about pz. So if I just find out px or pz, find out what that is, I get py. So let's do px because the numbers look friendlier. Px is going to equal 4 times x. X is now 7, so 4 times 7 plus 3, which is 28 plus 3, which is 31. And if px is 31, py is going to be 31. And that's my guy. Triangle RST is shown below. XU is negative 4y plus 20. XW is 6y plus 10. So XU is this guy. Oh my gosh, that guy right there. And XW is 6y plus 10. XW is, where are you? There you are. There you is. Find the radius of the inscribed circle. Okay, well, this is actually going to be nice. An inscribed circle is created by connecting the dots that are created by these lines right here. So if you were to try, and I'm going to be so bad at this, but I'm going to try my best to draw a circle connecting these 3 dots. Now that is an inscribed circle. It's a circle drawn inside of a triangle. The nice thing is this line, ux, or xu rather, and xw, they're all a radius of this circle, which means they're all equal. So xu is equal to xw. So negative 4y plus 20 xu is going to equal 6x or 6y plus 10. And now I have an equation with variables on both sides of the equal sign. Add 4y, cross u out, 20 equals 4x, 4y, and 6y. I'm so used to doing x. Pardon me. Okay, minus 10. Let me get out my calculator. 20 minus 10 is 10. 10 equals 10y. Divide both sides by 10. Y equals 1. Circle it. I'm done, right? No. Remember, each one of these guys is considered a radius of the inscribed circle. So all I have to do is pick one of these and plug in 1 for y. So let's pick xw because it seems friendlier. xw equals 6 times 1 plus 10. 6 times 1 is 6, and 6 plus 10 is 16. So for this guy, the radius of an inscribed circle is 16 units, whatever those units are. Okay? Inscribed circle, you're a radius, you're a radius, you're a radius. That's it. Done. In the figure, UV is a perpendicular bisector. So you're UV, you're a perpendicular bisector. It doesn't really look like it, but it is. Of SW, I see it. And VW, Volkswagen, Billy Madison, is an angle bisector. Oh, VW is right here, is an angle bisector of SWT. Find X and Y. So the picture is pretty much drawn accurately. Now it's just a matter of finding out what x and y are. So let's start with the x's because it's there in alphabetical order. If you are a perpendicular bisector, that means you and you are exactly the same. And by you, I don't mean you. I mean this line segment and this line segment are exactly the same. So let's set it up. 3x plus 1 equals x plus 3. I have an equation with variables on both sides of the equal sign, so let's subtract x, let's subtract x. That gets me 2x plus 1 equals 3. Subtract 1 from both sides. 2x equals 2. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. X equals 1. That's one of my guys right there. Now I need to find y. Y, it lives here and it lives here. Well, which one should I use? Let's use the fact that I have 4y, which is that symbol right there, that angle right there. You're a perpendicular bisector, which means you're 90 degrees. You're 50 degrees, and you're 4y. So I could say 90 plus 50 plus 4y equals 180 degrees from the interior angle sum of a triangle. Combine like terms, I'm giving you 140 plus 4y equals 180. Subtract 140 from both sides. 4y equals 40. Divide both sides by 4. Y equals 10. Now, I could use this information to answer a bunch of questions. I could be like, what's US? And US would be like, okay, well, X is 1, so US is 3 times 1 plus 4. It's 4, which means UW is also 4, which means SW is 4 plus 4, which is 8. I could ask you, find this angle then. And you would be like, all right, well, this angle is 40 minus Y. 40 minus 10 is 30. I could ask you what this angle is, and you would be like, well, you're 90 degrees, and if you're 30 and you're 90, then you're going to be 60. I could ask you all sorts of questions based off of this information. I could say, like, well, all right, well, this angle is 4 times 10, which is 40, which means this angle is 40, and that's 90. So you're 50, which means you're 50, which means I could just go on forever. Not forever, but for like 5 more minutes, asking you questions about this. All I had to do was find X and Y. I gave you some bonus. You're welcome.